This was probably like one of the best dates of my life. And we're vibing, and he's talking about how much he hates the porn industry and how he's like very against porn. I forgot how it came up. I was talking about living in LA, and I was like, yeah, and then I started an OnlyFans and hit the reaction on his face and thought about, yeah, Rolo and Redpilled and how they were all right. So yeah, I'm showing him my content, and yeah, he's not reacting. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? Like, what's going through your head? This isn't a fight. This is like an anecdote.
Okay.
So yesterday, I went on a date with this Tradcon boy.
Okay.
We got lunch for like 5 hours.
Okay.
And then we went to the beach and hung out in the sand.
I can tell you have a nice tan.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't ask me if I feel weird about being too brown or like if I
Nice,
felt
that's
bad
cool. Just
tanning too
fetishized you
much.
for your Islamic everything, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyways, everything's going perfectly. I love Tradcons because I actually know how to like date and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're hanging out on the beach, and he's like talking, and we're really vibing. Like
Okay.
this was probably like one of the best dates of my life.
Okay.
And we're vibing, and he's talking about how much he hates the porn industry and how he's like very against porn. And I was like, yeah, me too, because I forgot that I'm like a prostitute.
Okay.
So then I got really stressed because he wanted to kiss me, and I could tell that like if I told him the OnlyFans thing, I thought it'd be a huge turnoff, but I thought it'd be like rape if I kissed him without telling him.
Okay.
Since he's so against the porn industry. So I came clean.
Did he flip-flop his whole opinion?
So I shoehorned it into conversation, and I was like, I forgot how it came up. I was talking about living in LA, and I was like, yeah, and then I started an OnlyFans and hit the reaction on his face. It was like a gut punch to me. Like it was like fatherly disappointment.
Okay.
It was kind of like the face where he's like, I knew this was like too good to be true.
Catch. Well, he probably wasn't thinking that, but yeah.
No, he
go ahead.
was. I'm like a Tradcon wet dream. I'm like a virgin who doesn't leave the house.
Wow.
And then also I don't drive. And
Or
after
cook
like
or clean,
yeah,
but you
and
know.
after like the Steven Crowder like wife drama with the car, I feel like I became more attractive in every conservative's eyes because that would never happen with me because I can't drive. So I can never take the car away from my Steven Crowder. But anyways, I told him, and his face changed, and I got really bummed out. I kind of thought like while we were talking, he'd eventually like get over it or like change his position now that we've like fallen in love over the course of the past 5 hours.
Okay.
But I was like, yeah, I know you've been talking about porn and stuff, so I don't know if you're like against it. And he goes, yeah, I am against it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, can I see your content? And I was like, sure. So I was like showing him my content. What's so funny?
Nothing. Keep going.
What are you thinking?
Nothing. Just go for it.
There was something you thought that triggered that little smirk.
There's a lot of things I'm thinking that are triggered this, but I need to know how the rest of the story goes, so go ahead.
What do you think happens?
I have no idea. Let's go ahead and find out.
Do you want to place bets?
Not really, because I didn't see the interactions. If I had to guess, I would say either one, he pretends to change his entire position.
No need to place
one is
bets.
no. See the interactions leading up to this point. My guess would be one is that he'll pretend to change his entire position because he doesn't actually care about it that much, or two is that he has decided he doesn't care, but he just wants to see your shit without having to pay for it. Those are like my two guesses right now, but let's see what happens.
You thought he asked to see my like the album just to get free OF content?
Yeah.
He probably spent more on the date, like than
Doesn't
he would.
matter. It's free shit.
I don't think he was thinking like that.
Possible. I get honored when girls give me their free link, even if it's like $5. I'm like, oh, cool.
But anyways.
Go ahead.
So I'm like swiping through everything. His face is like very cold, and I just feel very stressed.
Okay.
And it's funny because we went out to lunch and we were like drinking and stuff. I'm not supposed to be drinking on SSRIs.
Okay.
But I did anyway. And then I was in the bathroom and I was really stressed, and I actually, like, this is so simpy of me, I took the OF out of my Instagram bio because I was like so stressed, and I was like, should I just delete my account right now, which is probably the dumbest thought I've ever had, so I don't think I'll be drinking anymore on SSRIs. But then I was like, this is so stupid. This is like a first date with someone. I don't know if they'd even care. But I just felt like I heard Rollo Tomasi in my head, like when he said to me on the podcast, like, do you think you having an OnlyFans will prevent you from finding the guy who you'd eventually want to have sex with? And like when he said that, I thought that was ridiculous because I started my OF in LA and nobody there cares.
Okay.
You know? Would you agree?
I don't know. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on here, but keep talking. I'm listening.
There's a lot of stuff going on?
Yeah. There's just like 50 things with the stories, but I just want to get to the end.
What do you mean 50 things? Name 2.
You have problems with who you are, what you do is work, and you need to figure that shit out before you try to date anybody, because it seems like you're not even 100% comfortable with how you live your own life, and I don't know why you would try to deal with it. No, it is that. 100% it is that.
I have 2 personalities.
No, you don't. You have one person. You're not 2 people. You're not Batman. You have one personality.
No.
You're a girl. You do OF, which is fine, but the idea of like hiding that or feeling weird about that or whatever is very strange to move through life like that, because you're like a walking like I don't know what's going to happen in like the next encounter with a person that might or might not like some part of my life. I think that's an important thing to figure out. That's what's in my head. But go ahead.
Well, anyways, I was saying that like half of me is this Tradcon.
Okay.
And then the other half.
There's no part of you that is Tradcon. I don't know why you keep saying that.
You've said that to me, that you think I'm Tradcon.
I don't think I've ever said that to you. If I have, it's been
Redpilled,
joking.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Even at that, I'm joking. I think the thing I use most of it is Radfem.
No, I'm very Tradcon.
Okay, there's no part of you that's Tradcon. I don't know why you keep saying that, but okay.
What do you mean?
Just what I said. You're nothing about you is Tradcon.
I'm traditional.
Okay.
Anyways, and then the other half of me is just a hooker. So those 2 sides war, because I really like conservative boys. Like, I've always been more attracted to like conservative guys.
Okay.
Do you feel that way?
I'm not attracted to conservative guys, so no.
At all?
No, I'm not. But I don't date guys, so.
I said attracted to.
I'm
testing your bisexuality right now.
Okay.
So are you?
I'm more bisexual than you're bisexual. Okay, so.
Yeah, I'm more lesbian than straight. So yeah, you probably are more bisexual.
I've probably had more experience with guys than you've had with girls. When I say I'm more bisexual than you're bisexual.
It's not about that. It's about the ratio of like.
I don't think it's about the ratio.
Yeah,
but
it
keep
is. Because I'm 10 years younger than you, and I'm conservative, so obviously I'm gonna hook up with less people.
If it's about the ratio, then we would go ratio by age.
No.
But regardless, keep going to the next thing.
How many guys have you hooked up with?
Keep going to the next thing. Keep going to the next thing. What's the next part of this?
I just wish you were more intrigued.
About what?
How this ends.
I am. I'm trying to get to the end of the story.
I forget where I was.
You were in the bathroom thinking about you want to be fake Tradcon, and you're also sad about your OnlyFans. You have no idea what your life is.
So I was very drunk in the bathroom because I had like 5 Prosecco glasses, and I was like, okay, I removed the link, and then I looked at my entire Instagram, and I was like, I'm still a whore, even without the link. And then all my captions are like link in bio, and then all the like posts in my Instagram are like about OnlyFans and stuff. And I got really stressed because it's so rare that I like guys. And I was like, honestly, like, should I just delete it right now? But I realized that was also stupid because, you know what I mean? It's already like out there online, so there's no point. So it was an internal dilemma for me, and I didn't delete it, and I just told him instead, and I got really nervous and thought about Rolo and Redpilled and how they were all right. And so I'm showing him my content, and he's not reacting, and I was like, well, what are you thinking? Like, what's going through your head? And he was like, honestly, like, I think these are really hot. And I was just like, really? And he's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I was so right on my first guess. Okay,
that was what I was gonna say?
That was my first guess, yeah.
Yeah. So he's fine, and then he left, and then he messaged me and was like, Sunday night. And I was like, Sunday night. So I win. Yeah,
you've won something, all right. Yeah.
I get the Tradcon, and I get to be a whore.
Okay.
So I was gonna ask you something related to it, but you're being kind of mean.
What do you want me to say?
Say your opinions. You've been laughing.
I already said my opinions. You don't like them. That doesn't count as me being mean. I just give my opinions on things. My prediction was right.
What was your opinion? That I need to work out my identity before dating? That's never gonna happen. I'm gonna die alone.
Well, that's life.
You think I need to like figure out my opinions on OnlyFans before dating?
Yeah, of course.
Why?
Because you're constantly going to be running into issues that are going to be dilemmas that are unsolvable because other people are posing questions to you that require you to have your first principles resolved, and you don't have those resolved. So it's just going to like be weirder and weirder and weirder. Yeah. I
guess I just feel like so many people's principles are just so flexible. Like, this was a first date, so it felt more stressful to tell him. But again, like, I felt like because he was talking about porn so much, I was like, I feel unethical not bringing this up. But what was I gonna say? But I feel like most guys, if you waited till like the 10th date or something, or told them, like they probably wouldn't really care.
I mean, it super depends on the type of lifestyle they live and what their disposition is. Like if they have a family and they're going to introduce you to them, it's probably not going to work. In the future, if you guys were to start dating, he's going to tell you to stop doing OnlyFans 100%.
No.
Okay, he will. Well, unless he's not Tradcon, which is also probably more likely.
He's very Tradcon.
He's not Tradcon and okay with you doing sex work. Those two things are, or actually, but you might not even have any idea what Tradcon means. I don't even know if you know what that means. So
he like, wait, how would you characterize Tradcon?
When I think Tradcon, I think traditional and conservative.
Right.
So they have conservative social values and they tend to live traditional lifestyles.
Yes.
Both parts of those preclude somebody doing sex work.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying like it's an exception and I win.
Okay.
What?
Do you want to take bets on the longevity of this?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to come get kava with us? We could do a double date.
No, I'm good.
Why?
Because watching that train wreck, I would say something, and then either you would hate me or he would.
What would you say?
It would just be the fakest, dumbest conversation ever.
How would it be fake?
Because it's two people simping for each other in the most self-destructive, retarded way possible.
How is it self-destructive? He doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah, but neither do you. So it's just two people simping and being retarded. Why the f would I watch that? No, what the f?
Entertainment?
No, because I would end up saying something and then it would be really bad.
You think we're that impressionable? You just say, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm going to be like, okay, bye.
No, I don't think you'd be impressionable. I think you'd probably get mad at me. You're already mad at me.
No, I'm not.
You said earlier you were being mean.
I'm saddened, not mad.
Okay.
But I was going to ask you your opinion on that. Like, what do you think about girls doing sex work in relationships? Because I
don't care. Why would you ask me my opinion? But I'm not Tradcon at all.
I'm not asking you your opinion. I'm asking you, like, you've heard my opinion that I think it's comparable to like guys consuming sex work, but that's like considered very controversial.
It is controversial. Most people wouldn't see it that way.
I know, but like, do you think it's fair to see it that way?
I guess, yeah. But I also do open relationships. My opinion is very, very, very off the norm.
You could still have an opinion. I've heard you talk to...
I just gave you my opinion. I told you I don't care. I'm fine.
Not if you want to talk specifically. You tell monogamous people that they're...
Monogamous people won't see it the same.
You'll tell Redpillers they're controlling, but then I could say to you, well, you don't participate in that type of relationship style, so you can speak on it. So I'm asking you to speak on a relationship style that isn't yours.
Okay, just be clear. So you're asking me to speak for...
Same way you comment on Redpill. I'm saying, do you find it at all controlling or unfair or asymmetrical that like guys can watch porn, but girls can't like...
No, I don't think so. No.
Why? So then you just contradict what you were saying before.
I didn't contradict.
I was saying they're equal.
I don't think they're equal. Or, I mean, I personally can see an argument for them being equal. I might view it similarly. But most people won't see it as equal. And I think there are fair arguments to not see it as equal. I just don't agree with most of those. But there are fair arguments to be made.
Are you going to elaborate?
There's a difference between watching somebody else like get off or getting off because you're watching somebody else versus the person that you're with being an object of everybody else's affection and then them being a masturbatory tool for everybody.
I think the only reason that like one's okay is only if you're like presupposing that like doing it is wrong and then watching it's okay, because I could just as easily say watching it's more wrong because you're actually getting gratification from that versus doing it's more like a job or a transaction. So I feel like the argument of like, oh, one's worse because it's watching versus doing only works if you say the doing's worse. And I don't think people have proven that the doing is worse than the watching.
It's not about a proof thing. If you're looking for a scientific study on this, you're not going to find it. It has to do with the depersonalization of it. When your guy friend is jerking off to a girl, the girl doesn't know that he exists. There's no direct one-to-one relationship there. Like, it's not a big a deal. But when your girl is doing something, or if a guy porn star was doing something, there's a difference because he's personally putting himself out there to the other people. That's why there's probably a decent chunk of girls at this point probably okay with their boyfriends masturbating to porn, but they wouldn't be okay with their boyfriends messaging an OnlyFans girl because they'd be making the personal connection.
Well, OnlyFans is also very new, and I'm pretty sure
hold on, it doesn't have to be OnlyFans. It could be any type of porn. This point still stands. It's nothing to do with OnlyFans. Once the personal connection has been made, people feel a lot differently about it than jerking off to porn. That's why a lot of girls would probably be more okay with their boyfriend jerking off to porn than jerking off to Facebook pictures of friends they have.
Okay, so then I agree that the typing is a bit more iffy, but what about just like posting photos on OnlyFans? I feel like that's pretty comparable to like the depersonalization of watching porn.
No, because the posting your pictures on OnlyFans means the guy sees that you're putting your body out there in a way that other people can enjoy it.
And again, that's only if you're suggesting like that form is cheating and the other isn't.
Most people consider that to be that way.
Yes, but that's just because of the norm.
Okay, you can say it is for whatever reason wants. You're not arguing against me. Go argue against them if you want. But that's how most people are going to see it. Probably 95% of humanity is going to see it that way. That you putting yourself out there is different than somebody else privately enjoying somebody different.
I just feel like it's arbitrary
I mean, it's not arbitrary, but you can feel like the standard is not fair. That's fine, but...
Because I could just say actually getting off to another person, that's cheating, versus the girl, unless she's like literally sexting these dudes and like, you know what I mean, using a vibrator to it, then I could say that that's not cheating. So I'm just saying, like, our rules around cheating and like what's considered stepping out is, I just feel like, centered around like male gratification.
No, I think women would probably feel the exact same way on this if the roles were reversed.
I didn't even say women would agree. I just said they're centered around male gratification.
I'm saying that it would, if it goes the other way, I think women would feel the exact same.
What do you mean by that?
That like a woman wouldn't be like, okay, well, I'll masturbate to porn if you do OnlyFans. I don't think a woman would be okay with her boyfriend doing OnlyFans if she's allowed to jerk off to porn.
What is your point? Yeah, because...
My point is, it doesn't have to do with male gratification. It has to do with differences in boundaries in relationships. That's why I'm saying, like, women...
I'm just saying, why is it the boundary?
The boundary has to do with if somebody's making themselves available sexually for somebody else.
But why is the boundary just coincidentally happen to line up with the form of, like, stepping out that works with, like, male interest? Like, it's mostly men who watch porn, it's mostly men who go to strip clubs. That's
sure, you can make that argument if you want, but I just said that if you reversed it, it would be the exact same. Most girls probably wouldn't be okay with their boyfriends doing porn.
It would be weird to imagine that, because that's not...
You can say it's weird to imagine it, but it would be the exact same way. So I don't think it's necessarily... If all the things in society were changed, I think this would still be... People would... On the male and female side, if you switched them, they would still have the exact same feelings about this, I think. That's why girls... The more personalized it gets, I think, is the more people have issues with things. So that's why if you... it would probably even be the same for guy friends. Like if a guy caught his girlfriend masturbating, he probably wouldn't care. But if she was masturbating to pictures of his friends, especially that she knows, it would be a totally different thing. And then same thing with the girl. You jerking off to the nastiest, worst porn in the world would be one thing, but you jerking off to pictures of her friends on Facebook would probably be a whole other thing.
Yes, I agree. That's why I'm saying OnlyFans is on par with porn. It's not that she's taking nudes and sending it to her male friends.
She's taking nudes and she's making her body available to other people to jerk off to.
And he's jerking off to other people's body. I just see them as completely analogous.
Because they're not. There's a complete separation. An infinite number of guys can be masturbating to a woman's body, and the woman has no idea. There's no personal connection there.
Okay, so is that
but for the woman to
then?
make it, I'm not saying that's the standard. I'm just saying that's what people are probably more upset by. The woman is making her body available to everybody, so that connection is there. She's making it available, and that's the thing that bothers people. People can masturbate to porn, and there's no personal connection there whatsoever.
Okay, so why is there more of a personal connection if guys are jacking off to her than him jacking off to, like, same way you're saying an infinite amount of guys can jack off to her, he can jack off to an infinite amount of women. So I just don't understand where this idea that the girl's version is involves
well, one,
more
you're
connection.
comparing the subject to the masturbator. You're changing the scope.
I am.
Well, yeah, but then, so it's a completely different thing. I don't know why you...
I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying I don't understand why one's considered unethical and the other one's considered like a normal part of monogamy.
Well, I think you understand, you just don't agree with it, but then for some reason you're pretending you don't understand. Do you not understand what I'm saying? And that like, one is because the woman is making herself available sexually for other people. People don't like that. They would view that as bad. Making herself sexually available for other people, that's the bad act. Masturbating to other people is fine as long as you're not making yourself sexually available to them by like messaging them or something.
You're affirming what the norms are. Not like what's logically consistent, right?
That position would be logically consistent.
So I'm saying I agree that those are the norms.
But that position would also be logically consistent.
consistent.
It is, though.
Well, I don't see it that way. Well, unless, again, you're already presupposing the standard of what cheating is.
I'm not presupposing standard. I'm saying that there's a difference between making your... Do you agree that a person masturbating to somebody else is not making themselves sexually available to them?
Is it not? Maybe I'm not understanding.
If I jerk off to a girl online, does she know?
So sexually available means like the other person knows? Like that's what I'm saying, you're centering it around just like what happens to work with guys masturbating to porn.
You're rad femmed out on this topic. I don't think you can... I don't know what to say.
I don't think rad femmes are pro OnlyFans.
Your brain is like switched on some weird like female-male dichotomy. It has nothing to do... We can use any example. There's a different... Okay, when a woman masturbates to a man, has she made herself sexually available to the man?
No.
No, don't get triggered. When a man masturbates to a woman, is the guy making himself sexually available to the woman?
No, okay, so I'm saying...
But the person who's making nude pictures and posting on the internet, they are making themselves sexually available to other people.
Right, so I'm saying you're saying the sexual availability thing is bad, and I'm saying I think even just the sexual gratification could be seen as equally as bad. So I'm saying, why are we seeing the sexual availability?
Okay, if you want to say that they're equally as bad, that's a normative moral judgment, but they're not the same thing.
I didn't say they were the same.
Okay, but that's fine. But then that means we agree
I meant same in terms of like...
You can say, you're arguing they're the same morally, but they're two different actions, and some people weight those morally different. Somebody's going to weight like...
I agree.
Okay, well then what's the issue?
I'm saying I understand that they're morally weighted differently. I was saying, like, do you think that's an accurate moral assessment?
For me personally or for other people? Like, do I think I wouldn't care. I don't care at all. But for other people, I think it's fair to view those two things differently, yes. For instance, if a husband and a wife were out, this would be totally reasonable. Husband and a wife are out, a woman walks by, and she's super boobing, okay? Husband looks, sees her boobing, he's like, she's boobing. And the wife's like, okay. Just because he sees another woman boobing walking around, he doesn't approach her, talking to anything. That's not the same as the wife being like, oh, well, you just saw her boobing and appreciate it. I'm going to go out and super boob now. Those are not the same thing. I don't think so, no.
They're not the same action.
I didn't say no. They're not the same moral weight either. I think I would understand.
Okay, then I disagree.
Okay, that's fine that you disagree. The vast majority of society will disagree with you on that.
I know
but that's okay.
that. I'm not saying none of this is the norm.
You disagree, but logically, that can totally be defended because they're two completely different actions.
Just because things are different doesn't make one morally worse. So explain to me why.
I just did explain. I explained because in one sense, somebody is making themselves sexually available to other people. In the other sense, they're not.
And I'm saying, can you argue why making yourself sexually available is more immoral or worse than being sexually gratified, being
because
the
most people
consumer
argue,
versus the object?
Right, because people would, I mean, this is going to come down to personal preference, but a lot of people would argue that in a relationship, you making yourself sexually available to other people is violating the boundaries of our relationship.
Right, because those are the norms. I'm asking you what's consistent.
Norms and ethics go hand in hand with each other. It's ethics to not fuck a 17-year-old. But in a lot of
I disagree. I think the fact is just because women have sucked it up, so they pretend like their boyfriends aren't watching porn. Like even when you watch Fresh and Fit, and they ask the girls like, broke and loyal or poly and rich. They're like poly and rich, but I would just pretend he's monogamous. So I feel like that's not healthy. It's more like these women just want to dissociate. And I feel like that's what's happened with porn.
Then you're not right now. You're not arguing with me. You're boxing ghosts right now. Okay. If you want to argue that, then you have to go argue with those people. But I think that that's a standard that can exist, and I think it can be defended.
I'm not arguing with ghosts. You were saying norms and ethics go hand in hand. I was saying that's an example.
They oftentimes do go hand in hand. Yes, norms, ethics probably arise from norms. Yes. There's norms that people have that they participate in. Do you think most people sit there and like write down their system of ethics? No, they generally inherit norms from their family and the society around them, I think.
Yeah, and then if Red Pill, went into effect and in like 20 years everyone was Red Pill, I would imagine you would still say like this is fucked and asymmetrical, right? Or would you just say, well, now that this is the norm, it's fine, it's ethical? Or I wouldn't do it, but other people
norms
can?
and ethics can diverge to some extent, but like largely they track each other. But it would depend on a case-by-case basis. Like in today's society, it's considered ethical to have sex with somebody when they're 18 or older. There's probably 16 or 17-year-olds that are smart enough to consent to sex. There's probably 25-year-olds that are too fucking stupid to consent to sex. But like roughly speaking, our ethics and our norms and our legal system all tend to like map onto each other. But there are going to be cases where they probably diverge. For instance, slavery. That was a norm, and arguably for a lot of people it's ethical, but there's probably some divergence there in terms of like what was ethically good. It just depends on the particular thing, sure. But ethics and norms are going to cross over each other like pretty heavily. Like they're generally going to map onto each other.
I just think we internalize the ethics, that we're like, that are normalized around us. And I think because we're in like the late stage porn industry and like we already grew up with probably our dads looking at Playboy and everything, we see it as normal, but because OnlyFans is new and now there's like this male public uproar about it and they're like, this is bad, like the social fabric is tearing, now we're seeing it as like morally worse. But I think in like 2 generations, they'll be seen as the same. And I'm guessing when porn first came out that it was probably seen, like guys watching porn was probably treated similarly to girls now doing OnlyFans. But I think now like we've just normalized it. So I'm just saying I think OnlyFans
it's possible, but now you're having like a meta-societal norms conversation, not like how would you argue somebody's relationship personally. Right.
I'm just saying, to me, the idea of guys being able to watch porn and girls not being able to take nudes or post nudes, to me comes off like pretty much Myron saying like open on my end, closed on yours.
That's fine if you think that. Okay.
I guess I was curious what you think, but
I'm in an open slut relationship. I don't care. What do you mean what I think? You keep talking about, well, what do you think? And then I say, well, this is what I think. No, not what do you think? What do you think about other people? And then I explain to other people. Then you're like, oh, well, I disagree with this. Like, oh, I disagree with it too. I don't know what you want me to say.
You didn't say you disagree with it.
I do. What do you mean? I'm in open relationships. I don't care if Melina's a fansly. I don't care.
But that has nothing to do with what I was saying. You said one's worse than the other.
Okay. Very specifically, ask me the question.
I'm genuinely curious what you think about it, about my take.
The actions are physically different.
Yes.
For me personally, I don't give a about the two, but they are probably normatively different as well.
I agree they're different. So this is where I like...
When I say normatively different, what I mean is like the moral weight behind each action
I know what you mean.
Is different too. Okay, wait. Why did I just say all that and you seem to be agreeing with it, but now you're like disagreeing with it? Do you agree with everything that I just said?
No, I'm saying I understand that that's what you're saying. I'm not saying I agree. Okay. So I agree, like for instance, I agree with like red pillars, like male and female sexuality is not the same. I think guys enjoy more being voyeuristic. They enjoy watching porn, and as much as we can say like girls like watching porn, they like going to the strip clubs, that's like a very small fraction, and like they're not being gratified on like the billion-dollar scale of like the sex work industry, right?
Okay.
So I feel like the idea of saying that like women should be gratified in the same way as men is asymmetrical, right? Would you agree? Because of the differences in male and female sexuality?
There's like a massively multivariate thing. I don't know. I wouldn't disagree to that. We would have to analyze like at every point, like how are men getting gratified by masturbating to women? What kind of gratification do women get? What are like the knock on or knock off effects from like all of that? Like I wouldn't just say offhand like, oh yeah, like it's the same thing.
Sure, even just the fact that even red pillars, or you were just saying the idea of looking at a girl boobing out isn't the same as your girlfriend boobing out, shows that guys think that girls revealing themselves, they're getting attention from it, or they think, okay, why take pictures of yourself and post on Instagram? So I'd say girls are more like exhibitionists, like they enjoy showing themselves off more, and that's how they get maybe some level of gratification.
But it's, you're almost like asking me the question, like, should a woman be able to f*** a CEO and become like the vice president of a company? And I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, well, if women have to deal with all of these negative effects of like sexism in the workplace and all these cultural upbringings, blah, 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 if she's had to deal with all those negative effects, shouldn't she also be able to her boss to gain like an elevated position as well? If you've got to deal with all the downsides here, shouldn't you get to have like benefits of like the upside here? And I was like, I don't know if I could just weigh those two things against each other immediately. Like saying like men have gratification some ways and women have gratification other ways, so they should both be able to get the gratification that they want. Well, those gratifications probably have a lot of different effects by them. Like, arguably, people jerking off to other people is probably never going to cause any weird shit to happen, whereas people making themselves sexually available to other people could probably lead to a lot more weird shit happening. So it's hard to like weigh those both normatively on the same level.
I see them completely normally on the same level. Both lead to desensitization. Actually, more so for the guy. Like, the more porn you watch, like, you're more likely to have an ED, you're less likely to get off to your partner, you're more likely to compare them to other people. Like, guys have left their girlfriends for, like, Instagram models who they think they have a chance with solely based on them sexualizing them, versus girls. As much as red pillars want to say, like, girls get an ego from, like, all the simps, I really don't think girls are ever comparing their boyfriends to, like,
sure, there's a lot of issues.
Simp.
Yeah, I agree, there's a lot of issues, but, like, half women also fake their orgasms and they're too retarded to figure out like what to do during sex with somebody. They lie about it half the time anyway. So I mean, like, there's like, everybody has problems related to like sexual interactions and relationships and stuff. How much of it is caused by porn versus how much, like, if we're gonna argue that like porn causes issues, I mean, it could. I'm not gonna deny that. I'm sure there's a lot of issues that could cause, but I don't think like every woman becoming a porn star or doing OnlyFans is like the solution to that. My guess is it's just gonna contribute more to all the issues. I never even said
solution. I probably think we'd be in a better society if there was no OnlyFans and no porn completely.
Sure, potentially. Yeah.
I was just saying I see it as the equivalent to the norm, like the ubiquity of guys watching porn. I think girls like posting nudes is their version in a way.
Okay, I completely disagree, but I don't know what you want me to say. What else?
You just keep changing. You said
no.
You said you agree.
Wait. Ask me a very specific question, because you keep asking me slightly different questions saying I'm disagreeing. I'm not. I'm completely disagreeing the entire time. So ask me a very specific question. I'll give you a very specific answer.
Okay. Why is it normatively different that women being exhibitionist and men being voyeuristic, like, why are those seen as morally, like, why is the woman's form of gratification weighted as morally worse?
Because most people, I think, have an idea that...
Oh, no, don't tell me by the norms. I know what the norms would say. The norms would say because she's doing the action and she's the one actually being sexually available. Okay, explain to me why...
Because enjoying something else sexually is different than making yourself available to people sexually.
Right, and now explain why out of those two things, one's normatively worse.
Why is one normatively worse?
Explain to me why sexual gratification is more ethical than sexual availability. Like, why is it that looking at a pair of tits is considered more ethical than showing the pair of tits? Like, I have yet to hear why.
Okay, here's a question. Would it be okay for a 16-year-old girl to masturbate to a 30-year-old guy? The answer is obviously yes. I don't know why you're thinking about this. The answer has to be yes.
Sorry. I was thinking about
you're trying to think of what I'm trapping you with, okay? So obviously the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. Would it be moral for a 30-year-old guy to masturbate to a 16-year-old woman? And then if the answer to that is obviously no, what's the difference?
The difference is that we have this like ethical barrier of it's not okay to jack off to minors, or that it's not okay to sexualize minors.
Why is it bad to sexualize minors, but it's okay for minors to sexualize adults? Because it seems like there's a different action behind appreciating somebody else's sexuality versus making yourself sexually available to other people. That seems to be a case that there's like a normatively different...
That's okay. The difference there is exploitation. That's why. Because they're worried that she's like putting herself in a position to be exploited, or that she's being taken advantage of. But so explain to me how that translates then into...
Okay, let's say that she's not. Let's say that it's just, there's a peeping Tom, he's got binoculars, he peers into somebody's window, he never makes contact with him, he's never going to do anything weird. You can spy on a 15-year-old girl getting dressed or whatever. Would it be unethical for him to jerk off to the girl? Or is that a different action than her masturbating thinking about some guy?
It's a different action, but how does that... why is that example different than the one you just gave? Like I just said, the idea is like we
because now it seems like you're
standard.
saying, okay, fine, that thing isn't bad, but there could be exploitation around it. When you start to go to peripheral things or tangential things, it seems like you're saying, okay, well, that maybe the sexualization of the minor is bad, but what if she's being exploited? That's like the issue.
No, that's not what I meant at all. I said the exploitation is integral to why you shouldn't jack off to the minor. It doesn't matter if he's looking through a peephole. It doesn't matter if she's taking the picture. It's just the idea that we've created this like very strong moral boundary around the idea like we don't sexualize underage people.
Okay, but why is it that we don't sexualize underage people, but we're okay with underage people sexualizing people of the age of majority?
I don't know. I've heard people even say that like even 15-year-olds shouldn't have sex with other 15-year-olds. I don't know. But
that's a ridiculously weird position that I don't know why we're even bringing that up. You don't believe that, I don't believe that, and very few people believe that.
I guess I brought it up because I guess their argument is that like if 16-year-olds can't consent, then why now if two 16-year-olds can't consent, now it suddenly like cancels out? I guess that's their logic.
I don't know why. I'm just saying that it seems that ethically there's a difference between somebody sexualizing or appreciating somebody else and somebody making themselves sexually available. And I think that we can see that very clearly in the case of minors. It seems like even if we can talk about Facebook pictures or Instagram pictures, it'd probably be okay for a 13-year-old to jerk off to a picture of a 30-year-old. We probably wouldn't view it as okay for a 30-year-old to jerk off to a picture of a 12-year-old or 13-year-old. But because it seems like there's an ethical difference between somebody making themselves sexually available for other people versus other people just like thinking about and masturbating to somebody different. That seems to be the case.
I just don't know if the ethical difference in that case has to do with the sexual availability.
Okay.
Like I just feel like putting in the variable of age makes it so different.
Well, it's not, the reason why I'm putting in the variable, the reason why I'm
age. So what's the confounding variable in like the OnlyFans versus porn thing?
The reason why I'm putting the age thing in there is to show you that clearly there seems to be a big difference between sexualizing somebody, because the age thing doesn't matter when we think about a 15-year-old masturbating to a 30-year-old. Nobody even thinks that for a second. Nobody be like, oh my God, that's porn, or I'm sorry, that's like exploitation for a 15-year-old to masturbate to an older person. Nobody even thinks that. So it seems like those actions are fundamentally different types of actions. That's why the age only matters in one scenario and not the other, I think.
It only matters because we're, again, presupposing that minors can't consent, so then the issue there is a lack of consent, not about sexual availability.
Yeah, but if minors can't, why can minors consent to masturbating to somebody, but they can't consent to sexualizing themselves?
I don't think it's because of the sexual availability component.
Well, what component is it then?
I don't know. I guess people just see it as...
Don't people, now you're appealing to norms. I'm asking you ethically, what's the difference?
I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it.
Well, it seems to be the case that there is fundamentally a difference between sexualizing yourself for other people and other people privately enjoying somebody else sexually. Like, in order to make those two things comparable, it seems like the issue would be personalizing the guy masturbating. But I think that connects with every single analogy. So, for instance, is it bad if a 15-year-old masturbates to a 30-year-old? Probably not. Is it bad if they contact a 30-year-old? That probably would be bad. Is it bad if a guy jerks off to an OnlyFans girl? Probably not. Is it bad if he starts DMing her? Probably is bad. Is it bad if somebody masturbates to a random picture on Facebook? Probably not. If it's a picture of a friend that they see often? Probably. I think it's the making themselves sexually available to another person seems to be the defining aspect that fundamentally changes that idea of sexualizing yourself to people versus just enjoying somebody else in a sexual manner. This seems to be the case.
Okay, so I guess the norm then would be that minors cannot like properly consent to making themselves sexually available, but they can properly consent to being sexually gratified, because it's like that doesn't involve another party or consumer.
Yeah.
But the issue, I don't think that translates into the discussion, because we're talking about the idea of monogamy and exclusivity. I understand your point.
Well, and just to be clear, the point there is that one of those actions is different, and the minor can't consent to it, but one of the actions is, and the other action is so minor that the person can consent to it.
Right, and I'm saying the integral variable there is consent, not, like I said, the difference.
Yeah, but the fact that you need consent for one thing, like, do I need your consent to lend you $5 and for you to pay me back? I could lend my son $10 and tell him to pay me like $10, right? It'd be okay. I probably can't lend him $50,000 and have him sign a contract to pay me back, right? Because those two things are like fundamentally different.
I don't get it. How does this apply?
Because $5 they're like fundamentally different types of actions. $5 is money that he can ask for his mom. It's not a big deal. $50,000 is something that's going to commit him to a lot of different types of actions later on in his life. They're like fundamentally different types of actions. So the consent is required for one versus the other because it's a different type of action. Same thing with the making yourself sexually available versus just jerking over to somebody. The sexual consent is probably required for the making yourself available because it's such a different type of action than just jerking off to somebody, I think.
That's already if you're assigning like the larger dollar amount to the girl doing it. Like that's what
I'm not saying the dollar amount is 1-to-1. I'm just saying
weightier.
It is weightier. But you agree that it's weightier. That's why a minor can't do it, but a minor can jerk off.
I don't know if that's because of the weight. I think that's just because of the consent variable.
Yeah, but generally the things that require consent are things that are weightier. That's why they need consent, right? Generally.
I don't know. I'm trying to think if this like directly applies. I just don't.
It's not a 1-to-1. I'm just saying that like different like if an action is so great that it requires consent, we probably view that action quite a bit differently than another type of action. You need to be the age of majority to smoke a cigarette, but not to eat a candy cigarette. Because one has more consequences, one requires consent. It's a meaningfully different type of thing, even though they kind of seem similar. But you don't. But so it's like. Making yourself sexually available to other people it's a fundamentally different type of action than just jerking off to somebody. Those are two different things. They might both lead to gratification, but they're gratifying in different ways, I think.
Sexual availability is weighted higher because you need consent to do it?
Well, no, but needing consent to things means that it's generally going to be an action that is weightier. Making yourself sexually available to other people is generally a pretty weighty thing. I think most people consider that's a pretty big deal.
I don't need consent to wear this booby top. You don't need consent to like check out a girl wearing a booby top. So how did it...
Not a booby top, but to pose in a booby top.
But explain to me how you were saying before. Let's go back to the other example of it's okay for a guy in a relationship to check out a girl wearing a booby top, but that doesn't mean that it's normatively equal for his girlfriend to wear a booby top. So explain to me how consent, or like that analogy of like the child jacking up to a 30-year-old but not vice versa, applies to that. That difference in normativity.
I don't know how I'm supposed to connect this 1-to-1. Can you ask the question again? I'm
saying take away like the digital aspect, take away OnlyFans and porn. One of the examples you gave was it's okay, or it's normatively different for a guy to stare at another girl showing her cleavage, but that doesn't necessarily make it normatively equal for a girl to show off her cleavage walking around. So I was saying, explain how the example you gave of the child jerking off but not vice versa.
Yeah, because too, I think people would view those actions differently. The woman would see the guy, look at the girl, and it would be, they can think it's right or wrong, but that's going to be a lot different than the girl being like, oh, okay, well, here's my boobs.
But the point you were trying to make with the porn example, with the child porn example, doesn't translate into that, because you were saying the reason we can see sexual availability as more morally weighted heavier is because it requires consent. But I'm saying in the instance of checking someone out or vice versa, there's no consent implied.
I don't know if the analogy can stretch this far, but if I were to stretch this different, I would say that like you could have 15, 16-year-olds going in areas where people are wearing like incredibly provocative clothing, maybe a little bit weird, but you couldn't have 15, 16-year-olds wearing incredibly provocative clothing. A lot of people probably have huge issues with that. So like for instance, even as weird as it is societally speaking, you can take a 10-year-old into Hooters and people like laugh about it. But if a 10-year-old daughter went into Hooters and started wearing those outfits, people are like, this is really wrong. It's different.
Mm-hmm. It is, but I guess I just don't feel like the examples you gave like prove why, but that's okay.
Well, if you're asking for proofs, we're getting back to this like foundational like question of meta ethics. I can't tell you like this is exactly why the proof of why it is right or wrong. I just don't feel like
bringing in minors and age is a good analogy.
Hold on, toss the whole minors thing if you want. The only reason why I brought in minors was to show
consent, and it's like you couldn't use this example with a dead body because they can't consent either. So my point is
the reason why I brought in minors is just to show you that the two actions are not the same
because of the integral factor of them being underage and the fact they can't consent.
Yeah, but they don't have to consent to jerking off to somebody. So it shows that the actions are meaningfully different than making yourself sexually available. But we can toss them out if we want, but I mean, like that was just a way to illustrate that like it seems like we treat these two actions quite differently.
Okay.
What's your next argument?
This one I'm kind of like on the fence about, so I wanted to hear more of your opinions, because when I hear you talk, I form my opinions like in opposite to what you say.
Okay.
Because I think we have the same opinions because we're both like liberal and whatever. We have the same conclusions and destinations, but then like watching the way you think and speak to people and like the route you take is so insane that it's like I get on a train and it's like I know where we're going, but the ride is so insane that I jump ship and go Tradcon.
Okay.
So that's why I get annoyed. But
it's okay. I have that effect on people.
Yeah. But people think I'm being a contrarian, and I'm not. Like, I pretty much agree with you on things. I just don't, like, we have just such different, like, logical ways of getting there, in that I use logic and you use whatever.
I use real logic and you use, like, woman think. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, college. I saw you say that if someone doesn't know what they want to do with their life, they should go to college. Like, if someone even says to you, I don't know if I should go to college, that, to you, is an indication that they should 100% go to college.
That sounds exactly like the opposite of what I would say, but go ahead.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, well then, if you don't,
if I had to guess,
no longer agree with
the conversation topic that this probably came from was people asking questions of like, hey, I don't know if I want to be like I really want to be like a computer programmer, but I think I can like work on my own portfolio and everything. Do you think that I should I like go to college and do all that, or should I like start programming on the side or whatever? And when people ask me questions like that, what I say is like, if you don't know if you can like figure your shit out and do whatever right out of high school, just go to college, because the self-employed route and all of that is not for you. Just do the college thing.
No, let me find it. I literally heard you say what I just said verbatim. But if not, then obviously we don't need to talk about it.
Sure. You said if you don't know what to do, you should go to the military. I think college is generally a good path for everybody, but like if you have no idea what to do, you shouldn't just go and shit around for 6 years and be like a super senior, like taking like 8 years to get like a bachelor's in nothing or whatever.
Oh, okay. Because that was gonna be my take, but I really thought you said they should go to college. You said if someone comes up to you.
You have said that before? Okay. I mean, if you misunderstood this or whatever, or if I was unclear, if you have skills in a certain area and you want to turn it into a career, and you're not sure if you can just do it out of high school or if you should go to college, you should 1,000,000% just go to college. You're probably not going to do it on your own if you don't know if you're going to do it on your own or not. But if you genuinely have no idea what the fuck you want to do with your life, then yeah, I don't know, do a trade, go to the military. Don't just like go to college and waste all your money doing random like picking 6 different majors as a bachelor's or whatever. That's retarded as fuck.
Wait, I want to see if this is it.
If I were hiring someone for a position today, I would much rather hire someone who did not go to college. Why?
No shot.
100%. And I do it all the time. And the
it.
reason is that the people who go to college go through 4 years, and every single one of them talks and thinks and acts like a robot.
If I'm hiring somebody and I've got 2 equivalent candidates in front of me, and I've got a guy that was able to get his 4-year degree, that speaks volumes. I know that you can be on time. I know that you can show up every day and do what's assigned to you. I know that you have the ability to finish something. That's a hugely important thing versus somebody that shows up with no degree. If you don't have a degree, and you can make it without a degree, but you need a damn good portfolio to do that. And that is true advice for anybody working in any field. The college degree is the #1 grower of wealth inequality in the United States, because people with college degrees are out earning everybody else so much.
Watch what happens in the next 10 years with college degrees.
It's so important. Even other conservative-esque people like Jordan Peterson talk about like, how do we have a society where it functions when the IQ requirements for performing well in society are becoming higher?
This wasn't it.
Okay. But I did say, you heard me, wait, real quick. You didn't hear me give the qualification there where I said like, if you don't want to go to college, you don't have to. You have to have a damn good portfolio. That's the same point that I just made here, but yeah.
Massive benefits conferred upon you with a college education.
No, this wasn't it. It was like, wait.
College is a giant scam. Most of these majors are a waste of time.
Why do you think people pay the money?
Because it's an illusion to make them feel like they're productive.
I need to save it next time. Wait.
If I were hiring...
Yeah. I should have saved it. Yeah, I mean, I heard you say what I said, but if you said no, then I'm not going to debate you on it, because obviously you're not going
Well, I don't
to present
believe
that position.
So, yeah.
It's what you said, but yeah.
It's not what I said. You're probably just slandering me.
That'd be a
I
very
might sue
specific
you.
way for me to misquote you, that you said if someone comes up to me and says, I don't know if I should go to college, you said that's the clearest indication that they should go to college.
I would never say that. It's so retarded.
Who would say it?
Usually the people that say that, and this is what I think the conversation came from, usually it'll be somebody will come up to me and they'll be like, hey, listen, here's a skill that I'm like really good in, but I don't know if I should go to school or not. Then I would say, go to school. Because generally, if you're driven enough to work on a skill and you can make it without going to college, you probably already know that, right? There's a guy who's 18 years old who's already got a Git repo that he's been contributing to for 8 years. He's got like 4 huge projects he worked on. When he graduates high school, he already knows enough to get any cert he wants. He probably knows more than the majority of people that are graduating with a 4-year degree. This guy's not coming up to me and asking like, Destiny, do you think I should go to college? He's probably already working and shit. He might even already have job offers or might be working already. He doesn't need to go to college. But if you're like 18, you've got like a big interest in coding and you've never really worked on a project before, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I think I could be like something. No, go to college and get the degree. And that path for you is way more set and safe than trying to make it on your own when you haven't even done any work on your own already. That's generally what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative. And I'm saying, do you think college should be the default for like the confused 18-year-old, or do you think they should first like? Because I think they should like take a gap year. I don't think you really find yourself in college. I think
gap years are really, really, really scary in the United States. Because I don't even know what the chance of success. One is because you lose access to a lot of aid and scholarship by taking a gap year, and two is because it's very hard to go back to school after a gap year for a lot of people. I think for the majority of people. If you really need the gap year, then go for it. But if you're going to do college, you should probably try to figure that out when you're graduating high school. But gap years, I think, are super, super, super scary.
Okay, so then what's your answer to my question?
What is your question?
So I said I suggest a gap year for people. So then do you think the default for the confused 18-year-old should be college?
If you super don't know and you're super confused, then I guess take the gap year or just don't go to college at all. But
if they just graduate high school and they're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, what would be your advice to that 18-year-old?
It depends on their financial situation. If parents are offering to pay for school and they've got like a full ride or they've got a lot of financial aid or whatever, then I would say go to then go to college. Fuck it.
What if they're lower class?
Then get a trade or just work. But don't accumulate $50,000 of debt or $20,000 of debt for no reason. You know?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. We can watch this then.
Sure. But if you stop going to school. Everyone I know who took a gap year never got more sure of what they wanted to do until they got to school. Yeah, I don't know like how many people take a gap year and then figure out in that year like, oh, this is what I want to.
I feel like you do, because if you then choose to go to school, if you don't choose to go to school, that's one thing. But they're saying it's people who go to school after the gap year. So you get what I'm saying? Like you were saying, most people take gap years. It's harder for them to go back. But if this person went back to school, then they already made that decision. So clearly they're going to know what they want to do. Is the point?
Yeah, but I don't know like. It might be that a lot of people that took a gap year should have just gotten maybe by the time they were like a freshman or sophomore, they would have figured out what they wanted to major in, right? Because freshman, sophomore, it's all like gen eds anyway, right?
Yeah, that's why I think it's just a waste of time.
What's a waste of time?
If you don't know what you want to do,
no, I'm saying that if you don't want to do, but you're like in a position in life to go to college, probably just better off going to college for any random thing. Because freshman, sophomore, you could still change your major and graduate in 4 years or 5 at the worst.
You could, or you could just stick around for 2 years, go to frat parties, and then be forced to pick a major, and you pick something random, and then.
You could, or you could be in a position to go to college and then take a gap year, and why the fuck would you want to go back to studying? You graduated high school, you've already got an apartment, you got a job, and you just like continue on that path, and you never get a college degree, and the rest of your life is fucked.
Why would it be fucked?
Because now you're a person without a college degree.
Okay.
You could be a person with a college degree.
I saw a stat that said like 40% of like recent college graduates are underemployed. Like the jobs they end up taking don't even require a bachelor's.
Underemployment is a weird stat, and I don't even know if underemployment is necessarily bad. A lot of people consider yourself underemployed if your job is not directly related to your degree, but I've heard other people argue that shows the strength of a degree, is that if you get a degree, you can get work that's not even necessarily related to it. So I can't speak statistically to this, but I knew at the casino this was true. I know at Rachel's job in Nebraska Furniture Mart this was true, that like there are a lot of jobs, for whatever fucking reason, I don't know why, but if you want to get promoted to certain managerial positions, or if you want to work in like HR or whatever, they will literally say have any 2 or 4 year degree. Any associate's or bachelor's degree will qualify you for more pay. I don't know why, but it literally doesn't matter what degree you have, but you'll still get paid more if you have it. I don't know if it's like that at every job, or I don't know if you guys say that at your jobs or whatever, but if that is the case, then I mean like, yeah, you're still better off just getting the degree.
Yeah, I guess I just disagree with you of saying that like unambitious people should go to college unless your parents are bankrolling, because the only way I could see it being
if you don't have the money for it, you're going to assume a fuck ton of debt, then yeah, you probably just stay away and start working.
I think if you're just like wandering through life, but you have like rich parents and you're like old money, then it's totally worth it, because then you could just probably go to an Ivy still if you like did.
You don't have to. It doesn't have to be an Ivy. If you've got like middle class parents who are willing to foot like half the bill or something. Like
I guess I meant like I feel like top tier schools are the only place that can like dick around and you can still graduate and do well, because even if you were like a B student in like journalism, you could still probably end up working for like a major magazine.
I don't think it has to. You can be dick around into state school for a year, figure out your major, and graduate with.
But then I don't know. I think like your job prospects are going to give you like lower income probably.
Not at all. No.
Like a lower GPA at a top tier school is worth a lot more than a high GPA at a lower tier school.
I don't know, unless you're like a lawyer. I don't think that like the I don't think that this. I don't think going to an Ivy League or schools like that are,
My only
that
point
important.
was that like I think we shouldn't encourage like people who don't already know what they want to do to just go into the college system unless they happen to be able to get it into a top tier school.
I don't think I think the fixation on top tier school I think is wildly misplaced. I think if you go to a state school and graduate with anything in STEM, you're always going to be better off than anything else. Like the Ivy League shit only matters if you're doing like Ivy League professions.
But how many STEM people who went into STEM started off not knowing what they're doing? I feel like these comp sci boys have been coding since they're 10, so I don't feel like that relates to the population.
I think there's a lot of STEM people who like they're okay at like math and science, and they don't know if they want to code, they don't know if they want to do engineering, they don't want to do whatever.
Really, I feel like the people in those fields pretty much know before college.
Not.
You don't think so?
Nobody in no offense to you guys, but like, I don't think anybody who's a freshman in high school, or I'm sorry, I don't think anybody who's like a junior, senior high school is like, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a chemical engineer. I think they
that's
generally.
That's what my brother did.
That's fine.
Knew he wanted to be a chemist since he was.
Your brother literally is a lawyer.
My other brother.
Oh, okay. That's fine if he did that. But I think a lot of people, like, engineering is like a very, 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 very broad field. Sometimes you're just like good at math, you're good at science, you go to college, and eventually you end up like picking like an engineering field or whatever, and then you go into it. But like, I don't think people at like junior, senior high school, like, I want to be a petroleum engineer. Like, you go to college and you figure it out, I think.
I just don't think so, because if you don't know what you want to do, the first 2 years are just like these bloated gen ed courses. Like, I don't think you're going to take like basic physics
they're not
1
bloated.
and then
Hold
be
on,
like,
those,
okay, I'm going to take. Now I'm going to become a
why did you
chemical
say that?
engineer.
They're not bloated gen ed courses. They're required for your degree. What do you mean bloated?
Oh, bloated as in I think you don't learn much. I don't mean like.
You learn to go to college, right?
I think it's just a way to take your money because you have to live on campus for like the first 2 years pretty much at most schools.
The idea is supposed to be that in the United States education system, we want students to be a little bit more well-rounded.
I think it's bullshit. That's
you
why
might, but if you communicate with enough...
I think it's bullshit because they're bloated. I wasn't saying bloated because they're unnecessary for your degree. I think they're bloated because they're not necessary to make you a well-rounded person. I like in Europe...
I think they are necessary to make you well-rounded.
In Europe, if you go to college, like, you can just start studying the
I understand
major
you can do that, yeah, but if you talk to enough developers that are too retarded to even write a fucking proper email, like, at some point you're like, you fucking retard need to take more writing classes. Like, I think it's okay to have gen eds and to tell people to have a general awareness of the world and to be a little bit more well-rounded.
Waste 2 years of my life to learn how to write an email?
To be a decent writer, I think is absolutely worth that investment in your life, yeah. And I think having an appreciation for more things outside of the narrow purview of whatever career you work, we already are like so hyper-specialized as a society. Like, we specialize to an insane degree in our society now because of education. I think it's okay to take like a course on music rock history, and then a course on like the survey of anthropology, and then a course of like Russian literature. I think it's okay to have that, to have like a general awareness of the world. I think it's fine.
Not to have it, but to require it, I think is...
I think it's going to require it. This is literally the last year. College is the last stop for most people in their entire lives to be forced to learn something. Like, past that, you never have to learn anything else for whatever job training
I think that should
required.
end in the 12th grade, being forced to learn things. Outside of, like, your specific intended major.
That's so sad.
Why?
Because it's...
You're still learning in college. You're learning things
You're
in
specializing,
a though.
Way. You're just specializing more. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's good to have, broader basis of knowledge but...
Just taking, like, an intro to, like, French class.
Yep. Intro to basket weaving. Yeah.
Okay.